We're ready to go. Okay, looks like we are on air. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to have a nice packed house here tonight. Welcome to the Monday, February 26th, 2024 Cumberland Town Council meeting. Just a few items of business before we start here. We did have a workshop this evening at 6:15 to talk about the current school funding formula and how that may change in the future, or how that may be recommended for a change in the future. And then we had a 6:45 workshop that was very quick. Apologize for that we didn't have much time left for you, to talk about equity and inclusion plan for the town. So we're now, brings us to 7 o'clock, our normal meeting, and the first item of business is the approval of the minutes. That's from February 12th of 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Are those the amended minutes?
If you, Bill, if you can just
He
take a
said she'd
note.
correct them after our, as amended.
Yep.
I think the amended part went out to everybody.
Yes, and Tig and I both said we were fine with
Okay,
that change. So
okay,
hopefully
good,
whatever
as
minutes get
amended.
updated
Yep.
as amended, yeah. So
All right.
looks like we're all square. All those in favor of that? Unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is manager's report. Mr. Manager.
Two quick things before I bring Chief Small to the podium. Monday, nomination papers will be available through the town clerk's office. So those interested in running for school board seats or town council seats, please come in to see the town clerk to get nomination papers. The second item, a very, very important item, Council Seegers has been working with a bunch of folks for 3 years now on this senior tax bill that will go to the floor for vote tomorrow. I talked to our representative, Steve Moriarty, this afternoon on the phone. He is very confident that the bill will pass. So the tax bill that we have been working on here for the last 3 years looks like it'll be voted on in chambers tomorrow. So pretty exciting day. We're very excited to have that as another tool for tax assistance for seniors. And it'll be a while before it becomes law, so we'll have to amend our ordinance as well once it does become law. And hopefully by August, we'll have it in place, but not sure if it's going to be ready for this year. But very exciting work. And Mark, congratulations. That was a lot of work and well done. And then my final item is to bring Chief Small to the podium. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. As tradition, we'll present each of the employees that are coming into employment. Some have been here for a little while. We're going to start with a recently hired deputy chief, a lieutenant that was promoted, and then our firefighter paramedics. We'll do the badge pinning. Their families will come forward and do the pinning, and then Jen will do the swearing in for each of those. So without any further ado, I have Deputy Chief Andrew Turcott come up with his family. So you can be in the camera.
Put you right in front of the camera here, right above me. So, I want to see you.
This is Andrew Turcott. He was hired as our full-time deputy chief last month. He is certified at the firefighter 1 and 2 level, and also a licensed paramedic. He's going to be assisting with several things in the department, including the emergency medical services portion of the department, as well as labor management, risk management, planning. Guy's got a ton of experience. His commitment to public safety started in 2000 at the Old Orchard Fire Department. Since that time, he's worked in several different agencies. He was the chief of the Westbrook Fire Department prior to Steve, and the last couple of years he's been firefighter paramedic in Falmouth. He sits on several boards and committees, including Human Relations Committee for the International Association of Fire Chiefs, as well as sits on the board of directors for Maine EMS. He's got several college degrees and certifications, including paramedicine, fire science, nursing, business management, community paramedicine, which is going to be a big thing for us. So he is here tonight with Ava and Aubrey.
Jen.
Jen's gonna
Coming. So I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs. You don't have to repeat.
you might want to agree at the end. Just saying. Do you want to raise your right hand for me? Sure. Do you, Andrew Turcott, swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as you shall continue a citizen thereof? And do you swear that you will faithfully discharge, to the best of your abilities, the duties incumbent on you as Deputy Fire Chief for the town of Cumberland, according to the Constitution and laws of the state? Thank you. Congratulations.
I am Deputy Chief Gerald Croce. I would like to call up Jack Small. Jack started as an explorer in 2017, but he started way before that. He's Fire 1 and 2 Pro Board certified. He's a student at Southern Maine Community College that will be graduating this year with a degree in fire science. He's a fourth-generation officer in the Cumberland Fire Department in the small family. And his mom, Tricia, and his sister, Emily, is pinning him.
Morris, George.
Are you ready? Sure. I love that. Strong sure there. Jackson, can you raise your right hand for me? Do you, Jackson Small, swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as you shall continue a citizen thereof?
Yes.
And do you swear that you will faithfully discharge, to the best of your abilities, the duties incumbent on you as lieutenant for the town of Cumberland Fire Department, according to the Constitution and laws of the state?
Yes.
Congratulations. Welcome.
I'd like to have Zachary Carrero come up. Zachary has a college degree from the Southern Maine Community College and the University of Southern Maine. He's a licensed paramedic and certified as a firefighter 1 and 2 level, and he's here tonight with Joni Hancock to pin him.
Can you sign for me there? Where did he go? Good luck. Thank you. You're welcome.
I'd like to have firefighter Matt Hoyt come up. Matt Hoyt has a degree with Southern Maine Community College. He came to our department from the town of Gorham. He's a licensed paramedic and certified in Fire 1 and 2 level. He is here tonight with his wife Roberta and daughter Evelyn. Firefighter Steve Clifton. Steve came to our apartment from the town of Standish. He is licensed as a paramedic and certified in Fire 1 and 2 level. He is here tonight with his wife Tracy. Firefighter Anthony Caldarli came to the department from the city of Gardner. He is licensed as a paramedic and is certified at the Fire 1 and 2 level. He is here tonight with Linda and his 2 sons, Dominic and Gavin.
Get up there, guys.
And Mother Arthleen. Thank you.
There's a shot.
Firefighter Jordan Hancock. Come up. Jordan has a college degree from Wilson, North Carolina Community College, and came to our department from the city of Portland. He is licensed at the paramedic and is a certified firefighter 1 and 2 level. He is here tonight with his wife, Joni.
Right. It's a lot of blue. Okay, can you all raise your right hand for me? And I'm just going to go by your first names because I can't pronounce half the last ones. So do you, Stephen, Zachary, Matt, Anthony, and Jordan, swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state so long as you shall continue a citizen thereof? Yes. Beautiful. And do you swear that you will faithfully discharge to the best of your abilities the duties incumbent on you as a firefighter or a paramedic for the town of Cumberland according to the Constitution and laws of the state? Yes. Congratulations.
Andy. Before we leave this item.
Councilor Vale.
Danny, don't leave. About 2.5 weeks ago, my neighbor suffered a stroke. And this past Sunday, I was checking in on him and was speaking with his wife, and she reiterated a couple things to me. That one, there's a 3-hour window of time between a person who suffers a stroke and before they need to get to advanced medical care, and that time is of utmost essence with someone who's a stroke victim. Anyways, she went on to say that she was so pleased with the response from the Cumberland Fire Department and the performance of the paramedics and the cops. I didn't catch it whether she said Jason or Clayton, but anyways, thank you very much for the efforts for my neighbor. It was well appreciated, and it goes to show that the service that is provided by this community is very important. Thank you.
It always means a lot to hear that back from the patients, customers, from the community, saying the good words. Our crew works really hard, and I'm very proud of them, so I'll pass that along.
Yeah, and Chief Small, I would also add, we thankfully didn't have a fire at our home this week, but I did slip on some ice and break my leg, and within 2 seconds, and that's why I'm leaning this direction. I like my colleagues over here, but I've got a leg up here. Within 2 seconds of getting a text, I had this kind of one-knee wheelie thing delivered to my house, and it was a game changer for me, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for all you do, and thank you for everyone in the police force and the fire department, what you do to help the community. Really appreciate it, and congratulations to everybody. And Anthony, your sons listen a lot better than my 2 sons did when you were taking that picture, so yeah, thanks again.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. See you.
And now the mass exodus.
Yeah. Okay, so is that all, Mr. Manager?
The guys I
That
just
is it
sworn
for managers.
their
Oh, that was a
oaths.
fun one. That's great.
Paramedics. Jackson did his and Andrew did his. It's the other guys.
And Jen, you're still mic'd.
It's always a great heads up.
Andy's identical twin is Lieutenant with the State Police.
Oh, really?
Who I know, he and I are very close.
They look identical.
They're identical twins, yeah. Yeah. And, matter of fact, his brother, when I retired, took over my own job, so. Very lucky to have him.
We'll maybe give a 2-minute little recess here, let people clear the room so we can get to public discussion.
Where's Adam? Oh, right there, I see him.
She had been graduating last year, or she is graduating this year. She's probably already out. Yep. And I was hired to take his mother's place. His name. I actually had thought. But he was, I kind of suggested he might consider, planning board or something, or something. To get his feedback.
Think we're ready to go?
Yeah, they're almost out the door. Your mics are still all live, so be careful.
What are you trying to say? Don't say anything.
No, Chris is just warning me. He said, their mics are live.
Okay, it looks like folks are clearing out. So we can now move to the next item on the agenda, which is public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address a topic that's not on the agenda? Please, if you don't mind just stepping up and saying your name and where you live.
Yes, my name is Steve Sloan. I live at 177 Range Road. I'm here today because I'm very conflicted about the housing project that's being proposed. On one hand, I am not against income-controlled housing as long as there's the social services to be able to support that housing. When you look at the city of Portland, South Portland, the city of Westbrook, when they develop these income-controlled housing, it is done in an area that has public services. Whether or not it's Metro line, there's doctor's offices, there's social services that people will be able to need. At $48,000, somebody would have to work at 40 hours a week, making $23 an hour. I don't know any place right now that is paying less than $23 an hour. And if they are making $23 an hour, they don't have the money for vehicles or sometimes health insurance. And what happens there? When somebody doesn't have health insurance, there's a huge trickle-down effect. It starts using your emergency services, the services offered by the town. And I don't feel that the town is ready for that. If we took a step back and actually looked at this strategically and said, we want to do this, but in order to do this, we need to have things in place before we do so. We need to expand the Metro line or come up with an area where it is on the Metro so that people can get to appointments, so that people can get to the grocery store, doctor's offices, all of these things that they're going to need. There was a comment made about, well, there's a prevalence of rideshare. At $23 an hour, paying $20 to get to the grocery store there and back is not going to be conducive. People are not going to be able to afford that. And if that's what we're truly looking at, then we need to pump the brakes, look at how can we improve the services that the town offers. Our fire and EMS, unfortunately, that's one of the things that I know, along with the police department. When we start adding services that are going to rely on them, whether or not it's a community policing, whether or not it's community paramedicine, to keep people out of the ER. We don't have that in place here in the town. We staff an ambulance with 2 people. Yes, mutual aid from Falmouth to Yarmouth, they have ambulances as well, but everybody in this service is getting busier. They've had to add staff, not just so that they can sit around, but because their communities are demanding that they respond on these calls. And if we don't do so, we are setting people up that have no other means for failure. They're going to call, and they're going to need to use the emergency services as their primary care. And that's not the intent. So the other piece that I wanted to touch on was this, that we're putting a mechanism in place so that elderly residents can stay in their homes. Why don't we look at how do we decrease the residential tax liability so that they can stay in their homes? We do that through commercial growth. And as much as that's a taboo word here in Cumberland, we need to look at that, because that doesn't impact your schools. That provides a tax base where you can improve your services. I know that you guys are going to be having a workshop, you might have already had it, on the Route 100 corridor. The concern that it abuts a residential community or a residential development, well, that has been commercial since I was a kid. So, and we have always used that we don't want to interrupt the residents. If you move next to a commercial area, you have to know that at some point, commercial growth is going to happen. Look at what, I mean, the city of South Portland and Portland, people moved into the airport and then they were complaining about the airplanes. Right? It doesn't make sense. So we need to look at strategically throughout the town, how do we improve the services that we can offer? Can we bring doctor's offices in? Can we bring pharmacies? Can we bring commercial tax base that will lessen the impact on our residential people that are struggling right now and don't need to have an additional liability on their plate? So, like I said, I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm opposed to this project because I don't believe that the services are in play at this time to be able to support a project like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Please, step up.
Good evening. Tim Mahalik, 31 Shady Run Lane. I just have 2 questions, and then I have some exhibits, about 6 relating to the questions I just want to pass to the council, so I'll really move along. But I'm here to ask, when will we begin to actively administer the affordable housing covenants that are associated with Smalls Brook Crossing? That was Cumberland's first affordable housing project. And in light of the housing crisis here, I ask that the amendments that were made to Smalls Brook in 6/4/12 be revised, as the town attorney, Ken Cole, said we had the opportunity to do. And you can see here, Exhibit A and B, I'd like to pass it on to be part of the record, but is the original court recording regarding the amendments and
Mr.
the
McCullough,
vote.
maybe you can pass it out after you're done speaking, just so folks can hear you at home on the microphone. Oh, that's fine. You can pass it out now. Just make sure that you're back to the mic so folks can hear you.
And so now how did this come about that specifically it was elicited that the affordable covenants would remain and would continue to restrict Smalls Brook? Well, on 11/11/11, getting ahead of myself. And here's the agenda vote, and it also repeats that the property shall continue to be encumbered with the affordability covenant. Mark this Exhibit C. So how did this amendment come about? There weren't any people of record who came and spoke. Nobody was hired from Smalls Brook to represent them legally. But there was a memo that was authored by William Shane on 11/11. And that memo talks about terminating the accrued interest But there's also a misconception, because there's two ways that the property could be transferred. One, with the affordable covenants that we're required to go through. And the second way, if nothing worked, you could sell it at market rate. And that interest is represented in this memo as being paid to the town in both cases, which is not correct. So we talk about misconceptions. And the second mortgage is important because it helps the subsequent buyer buy at a reduced price. Now, the initial buyers know going in that reduces their sales proceeds. But, so this is Exhibit D, 2 pages in the original memo. So, what are the affordable covenants at Smalls Brook? Number one, there's supposed to be a pool of purchasers, residents of the town for at least a year, people who work at the MSAD 51, people who work for the town, the municipal employees, immediate family members who have resided in the town up as long as 15 years ago. So I know the chairman of the housing committee said he's worried his children couldn't move back. This would help them move back. How else does it work? It's income restricted. So if you're using Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, a federal mortgage, you can only earn up to 120% of the area median income. If you don't use those programs, which are the majority, you can go up to 140. How does the sales process work? The people in this pool, and the town administering it, is supposed to maintain a pool. So contact the fire department. Let the people know this project exists for this purpose. They're supposed to have first right of purchase for 120 days. And in combination with that income restriction and the assumption of that second mortgage, that would help them to arrive at a sales price. And it also talks about a little more information about the assumption of the mortgage. If the price isn't high enough to completely pay off that second mortgage, the town would accept less. But the people going in had the same they knew about this, and it was intended to provide opportunity. And lastly, here's the letter from Ken Cole, dated 2/7/12, that states you have the right to reverse this.
Thank you, Mr. Mahalik. I think we're about at the 5-minute mark. I'll give you the extra 2 minutes of rebuttal time if you need it, but.
Well, the only thing I say, the leaders of our town, I'd like them to provide the same opportunity to their employees that they had going in, and volunteer to reverse the amendments to this contract zone agreement.
Thank you very much.
Tim, can we keep these, put them in the record? or-
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the council on a topic that's not on the agenda tonight?
Jump right up there, Bruce. You're up.
I believe so, yes.
Before you start the clock, I'd like to just ask a couple of protocol questions before I do my talk. Number one, I had a couple of nice stories that I could have told about Dan Small tonight. One of them basketball, one of them fire department. Would it have been okay if I stood up and said I wanted to do that or not? I don't know those things.
I mean, I probably would have been okay with that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a very forward person. I had a couple of nice stories that would have been, I think, of interest to the general public.
We can share them now if you'd like.
I will share them then. Dan Small, he was one of Cumberland's finest basketball players. I didn't coach him, he was in high school. But I do remember, I think it might have been his last game, where we were in Class A a couple of years when he was a senior. and we had to go to SMCC to play Chevrolet in a tournament game. And I took my boys down to watch it. And they idolized Dan Small. And Chevrolet had a guy named Adam Ward that played for him. And Chevrolet, to my memory, beat us. It was a tough game for Greeley. But I would have said that looking at Dan Small today, and I run into him occasionally, he knows I'm a basketball guy. We share basketball. I would have said to him tonight, you know, Dan, it looked like you could have gone down and taken him on again to me tonight. You know, that's what I would have said, because he does. He's in good shape. He's a good man. The other story is about him. I lost my house February 23rd, 2013 to a house fire. Dan Small and I spent the night together that night, watching my house burn. He didn't spend much time with me, the chaplain did, but he was there, and he checked in with me frequently. And he immediately had fire department personnel cleaning furniture out to my garage. We saved a lot of stuff because of Dan Small's quick reaction and how he handled the situation. A lot of respect for Dan Small, good man,
Yeah, thank you for sharing
one
those
of
tonight.
Cumberland's finest.
Thanks for sharing those.
All right, so now, I also would like to get the deal that Mr. Sloan got. He got 3 extra minutes tonight.
Well, you
You
just
didn't start
got,
the
you
clock,
just,
till
you
you
just
talked
got
for
them.
3 minutes.
So
You just passed it.
we got.
You're
we
gonna
got-
give me that
We'll
deal?
give you 5 minutes starting right now.
All right, I'm gonna talk about stuff I've talked about before. We need to talk about the very bad deal this affordable housing is for this town and its taxpayers. I can't think of a worse deal that I could put together. We're gonna spend $3 million of our tax money and what I estimate $200,000 of land to give to a developer that's only gonna pay us $40,000 a year back for that loan advance. That's 80 years to pay us back, folks. 80 times 40 equals $3,200,000. That's a bad deal. On top of that, these people, there's gonna be 107 households in this development that will, because it's a TIF development, that 40,000 is gonna go to TIF, not used for any general service or school expenses. That 40,000 goes to TIF. Nothing that they pay, the developer, the landlord, or the residents, is gonna go in to pay general service and school expenses. Nothing, zero. And that goes until 2048, folks. That's over 20 years that they will not be contributing anything but using services and school, those 107 households. That's a bad deal for us taxpayers. It's been said, Mr. Shane has been saying that Ocean View will cover that because they're in the TIF district. That is baloney. That money is, they're a taxpayer just like all of us that are taxpayers here. Their money goes into the fund to pay whatever expenses this town needs to cover. There may be expenses beyond what those people are using any year or all years. That's a bogus argument. The other thing about that is that, better look at my notes. Again, they're just like other taxpayers. The other thing I was going to say, that it's TIF money, so it's going to be voted annually as to how the TIF money is used. The current TIF committee that would vote on it is made up, I believe, I've looked this on the town website, Mr. Segrist, Ms. Filson, and Mr. Cott. Those are the 3 people that would vote on it if it was this year. I believe that 2 of those 3 are not running again in June. That means we have a different TIF committee next year. That means we have the potential for a different committee every year. They will not necessarily vote the way that Mr. Shane is saying they will. A bogus presentation on how to run your town. This thing, I do accounting for people. I know people in this town that will be hurt by this, tax-wise. And I'm very upset about it. I gotta tell you, quite honestly, I can pay my taxes. I'm not worried about me. I'm doing this for people out there that are gonna have trouble with this. This is a very, very bad deal, and the town officials have not explained it adequately to people, what the voters are voting on and what they're dealing with. That's what I'm trying to do. Again, this is gonna hurt people in town. I'll see you Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Thursday. What's Thursday?
It's the Valhalla. Anyone else from the public like to address the council on a topic that's not on the agenda? Okay, going once, going twice, seeing none, let's move on. We will close public discussion and we will move on to legislation and policy. The first item on the agenda is 24-011, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on approval of a wharfing out permit at 25 Ledge Road as recommended by the Coastal Waters Commission. Yep. Do you want to, Mr. Manager, tee it up, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rick, are you going to handle this tonight?
Yes, I'd be happy to handle it. Also, we have a representative, Tim Forster from the engineering firm has put this plan together. Tim, you're welcome to come up here and join me in case there are any questions on the part of the council. But we're here to talk about a wharfing out permit for 25 Ledge Road in Cumberland, Forsyth. The Coastal Waters Commission was on site on February 6th to review the project. And I believe you have the project details in front of you, but it's it's essentially a replacement project, or replacement of an existing facility that was destroyed in the storm in December of 2022. And the replacement plan is essentially identical to the wharf and configuration that was in existence prior to the plan. We have reviewed that plan with Tim's help, and we also had a number of the neighbors who joined us, which we were glad to see down on the water, and spent some time with us. We were able to answer some of their questions, and I think it's safe to say that all of those folks that we encountered strongly support the proposed wharfing out permit. The permit itself, the way the project is proposed, meets all the criteria of the code. Has been approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. It's been approved by DEP. And really is pretty straightforward. The only unique aspect of it is if you look at the waterfront, there's a house that was on the old project that's out there in stilts. And it will be eventually replaced and put back on the pier once that is constructed. And that seemed to be the primary question that a lot of the neighbors have: is that thing going to stay out there once this project is completed? And of course, the answer is no. So we, as I said, the commission reviewed the project. It meets all the criteria. We were not able to observe the embankment project work because that will not be done until later on this spring or early summer. And of course, there's an integral part of the initiation of the wharfing project. The project is going to be done by Proc Marine, probably one of the best dock and waterfront specialists on the Maine coast, and it also meets the colonial rights kinds of passageways and other issues. And based upon what we saw, we're prepared to approve it unanimously on the part of the commission with no conditions. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions about the project that you may have, or the permitting, or Tim maybe elaborate a little more on what the project's all about.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Any questions right out of the gate?
I'd like the public to know the application is 50 pages long.
I was going to bring up too.
It is very thorough. I do have a question on the bank stabilization. How long do you think that's going to last? And will it last one of the storms that we've been getting, these once in 100-year storms?
Sure. Hi, I'm Tim Forrester with Flycatcher here on behalf of the applicant. So it's kind of a unique scenario that's happened here. The lay of the land is there's a lot of ledge that comes up on an angle,
Yeah.
and then some vegetation had been removed along the shoreline, and we had some pretty significant tides, and that resulted in basically a rotational failure of this mass of land, and it slid right across the ledge out into the resource. So it's a challenging one to fix, but the proposed plan is to use this large, regular quarry blasted granite riprap that's at least 6 feet in diameter, 4 to 6 feet in diameter, and it's pinned right into the ledge. These are stainless steel, 1.8" steel rods. It should last indefinitely. Above that will be revegetated as well, but it's a little bit of a complex project because we can't rebuild the wharf and the dock because the land behind it slid underneath and actually knocked the structure out. So the order of operations was to first clean up the site, get rid of the old wharf, and then we temporarily stored the building until we can stabilize the shoreline and then go back in and rebuild the wharf.
That picture where you put the wharf house out on
Yeah, on the
stilts in the water is pretty
I'm glad we
impressive.
put it high enough for
That
the
must have been quite
recent
a-
storms. It was
Quite
pretty
an
close.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I saw somewhere in the materials of the 50 pages that Shirley mentioned that there was something about construction can't occur between, was it July and October or something? Is this something that, I mean, in terms of timing, like if this is approved tonight, you guys start right away and you're done by July to be able to get it done?
So
this year? How does
that's
that
a,
work?
that's a timing restriction from Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. There's several different habitat types in and around the area, mostly tidal wading bird and waterfowl, and then some shorebird areas. There's been some recent sort of back and forth on what restrictions should be applied when for certain activities. So that particular one is actually not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be during the nesting season for the species, and that's not actually when it is. So it's sort of a typo.
Got it, okay.
But I will make sure that we have something formal from IF&W before we start work.
Yeah, I think that probably just for your own benefit.
Yeah.
Because I saw it, I was like, oh, these guys better get to work pretty quick
Right.
if this is the case.
Right.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Bell?
There's not much engineering documentation here as far as how this is being constructed, so it's kind of difficult for me to review, but looking at the pictures there, it seemed to me there was a lack of triangulation in the original structure to hold those forces back, and I'm hoping that there is some additional engineering work being done that we really frankly don't see in these documents here. And, you know, I get it, it's a rebuild, and I don't have a problem with that, but knowing that the storms are more and more frequent and more significant, you know, I'm hoping that the engineering backs up and I see some better loading than what the sketches provide.
For these types of projects, we typically keep them a little more simplistic. For the DEP, it's simply a permit by rule for replacement of structures. But the old wharf those were just hand dug posts set into the substrate. The new ones will be larger diameter, 8x8 timbers that'll have stainless steel brackets and thunderbolts pinned right into ledge. So it's significantly more stable.
Right, that's been a concern. A friend of mine owns a pier down in Bristol, and one of the concerns is you can build back, but they're not allowing you to build better, and I hope that has been alleviated, that, you know, we have to build better or set back to comply with changing,
Yep.
changing
I
conditions.
actually just testified before DEP about that, and we've made changes to permit by rule to allow for replacement of structures to come back and be elevated, where before it was simply a straight-up replacement in kind. So they're working on it.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Okay. I think this was great. Thank you for putting this together. I believe we probably have a motion for this. Oh, excuse me. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing, so anyone from the public have any comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment on that.
I'll give you one motion.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I move to approve the wharfing out permit for 25 Ledge Road as recommended by the Coastal Waters Commission.
Second. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Let's take. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to hear a proclamation from the Lands and Conservation Commission for the town of Cumberland to become a tree city. I believe we are joined by Mr. John Jansenius and Reva Krut. Oh, John's the IT guy right now, helping to talk
How's
with
the
us a little
techie?
bit about this.
Did you steal my job?
Looks like he's gonna steal your job, Tig, that's right.
Okay, I'm Reva Krut. I am a member of the Lands and Conservation Commission, and I'm here to talk about Tree City and why we would like the town of Cumberland to become a tree city and ask the council's support. This infographic shows that almost half of the USA lives in a tree city. Not all tree cities are cities. Some of them are very tiny, little towns. And this is true of the state of Maine. And here are the main tree cities, and what you can see is from our largest city to some very small towns. There's a substantial concentration of tree cities in the southern part of the state, but you'll also note that almost all of our neighboring communities are already tree cities, and in some cases they've been so for a very long time. Portland, South Portland, Westbrook, and Farmington are amongst the most long-standing tree cities in the country. Now, as any resident here knows, Cumberland, the town, has made substantial investments in trees, trails, and forests, in addition to working with partners like CCLT, which extends our treed acreage. So it would be reasonable to think that we already meet or exceed the standards to become a tree city. Well, it took us a while to get our ducks in a row. In fact, on the way in, Ellen, who's also on the LCC, mentioned to me that she had been trying to get Tree City approved here 15 years ago. But in any event, we think that we've now got our information ready and that we clearly meet the formal requirements. And with a couple additional small administrative steps and about $200, which the LCC is happy to provide, we think we are ready to become a tree city as well. This will complement our reputation and as a town with lots of green space, and it will also further educate our neighbors and our residents about our extensive natural resource wealth. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes and a couple of slides explaining what the program is and what is required, and then ask for the town to move ahead with the proclamation and the approval. So in order to become a tree city, there's 4 steps. The first is that we need to show the value that trees provide to our community. And I want to emphasize that there's nothing here that's new for the town of Cumberland. The town elders have for decades been demonstrating the value of green space to the town, and the LCC and its multiple committees on sustainability, on trails, on forests, on invasive species, and now the new one on the community orchard, and I've probably left 1 or 2 out, have been demonstrating the value that trees provide to our community. Second, the program itself, we need to educate our residents. We already do that through the committees I've been mentioning. As it's a national program, our feeling is it's just time for Cumberland to step up and join. It's really, if I can mix my metaphors here, it's really low-hanging fruit for us. Now, the benefits of the program, again, we know the benefits in terms of better quality of health, quality of life, and I think it would be nice for us to be able to point to this accreditation as validation of that. And finally, we have 4 standards that we have to adhere to. I'm going to go through them quickly. Oops, sorry, I thought I was going forward. We need to have a tree board or a department. No additional action required. We have this with the LCC subcommittees on forests, trails, invasives, and the community orchard, as well as sustainability. We need a tree care ordinance. In fact, it turns out that our LCC ordinance is sufficient, and this will be accepted. We need to show that we are spending $2 or more per capita on trees generally, and we are already exceeding that. To count that, we can count not only the work that the town is doing and our staff is doing in terms of running, maintaining the trees and trimming the trees and so on, but we can also count the enormous amount of volunteer work that's being done in these various committees. So, a quick back of envelope accounting, I got to $3 plus per head, and it's enough. Then we need to approve an Arbor Day proclamation, and we need to observe Arbor Day. So this will be new, and I'll show you what that is in the next slide. And finally, we need to submit our application each year to stay accredited. So this is the proclamation. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Essentially, this is a proclamation that was originally established in 1872 in Nebraska, so Mark, to establish Arbor Day, and this is now observed everywhere around the world, including here in the States. Trees are fantastic resources in a number of ways. I ask you to just cast your eyes to the end of the document where the meat is of what we're asking. We, the Town Council of Cumberland, Maine, do hereby proclaim the last Friday of April as Arbor Day in the city of Cumberland. We urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And we urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of future generations. And this will be dated today. Not quite done, because I want to just, and I've learned how to use this, I will go forward. We also have to have an Arbor Day observance day. So this will be to inform and engage the broader community. There's several things you can do here. They recommend tree planting or an awards ceremony or some education. All of this can be done under the auspices of the LCC or its subcommittees. And at the end of April this year, we propose simply an article in the crier. As we go forward with this, as we become more mature in this process, there's a whole lot of things we could do. We could do something with a school. We could do something perhaps on a Saturday, at the market on a Saturday morning here. So we could launch an award. We could do something in conjunction with the library. There's even ways we could use this to generate income. In Macon County in Georgia, they run a cherry blossom festival for their Arbor Day recognition. It's a week-long celebration. It brings in $4 million to the town. So we're not proposing this is done in the short term because we really think this we know that this will be approved by the Arbor Day Foundation. Next steps, because we need to establish a work process to make sure this continues. Today and each February, we would like to ask the Town Council to approve the proclamation. Now and each February, what will happen is we will then submit a renewal application to the Arbor Day Foundation and to Tree City. Each April or May, the LCC will define what that Arbor Day celebration looks like. This year, at the end of this April, and then each year, we will certainly run an article in the town crier and on our Tree City accreditation. In addition to that, the dark bubble there, we're also saying that we would like to purchase one of those signs that goes on a pole as you enter town. You would have seen one on the one as you go into Falmouth. And it really annoys me every time I drive in there because it says they've been doing this for 47 years. And I know our program is probably stronger than their program. Anyway, so it's going to cost us $200, and Mike Schwind has agreed for the LCC can fund that to pick up a couple of these signs, and then we would need to work with the town to have them install them and maintain them. Sorry. So that's it. I have any questions before I ask the town council to do what we're asking, which is to approve the proclamation. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. So 33 years ago, I got an Arbor Day Foundation flyer in the mail, and for a $10 donation, they would send me all these free trees. Well, I got these free trees, and they were about this big, and I planted them along my property line. Well, I'll let you know, they were blue, most of them were blue spruce, and they are now 12 to 15 feet tall. There were 3 Norway spruce, and they are like 20 feet tall. I planted them in different places. They grow much faster. And just a couple years ago, I got an oak and a lilac that are doing, I bought the better tree, not the donation trees. They come kind of dry and brittle and barely make it, but they have good stock too. For people who are interested in buying some nursery stock, you can reach out to the Arbor Day Association Foundation for that. So, yeah, they've been around a long time.
Please.
I should have had you do this, but okay.
Reva, I was curious as to whether or not there's a number that they suggest that each town kind of goes for as a goal annually for number of trees to be planted.
No.
Is my question. So it's just all kind of.
What they're looking for is tree management, which we
Okay.
have under our town forester and a tree management plan, and things like that. So no, then they can't, because if you think about the variety of size and scope and type of entity that gets accredited, they can't have a number.
They can't do it. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Reva, I just want to thank you for your leadership on getting this across the finish line. I smiled when I first realized that it was an Arbor Day proclamation from Nebraska that I was going to be reading as chair from Nebraska originally. I still remember stories of, I mean, you hear Arbor Day, everyone, it's marketed in Nebraska like crazy, and it seems like not a big deal, but if you drive west where I lived by the Wyoming border, I mean, there are not trees as far as you can look. And so every tree that's there was most likely planted. And so it's really impressive when you see these massive forests that were just hand planted. I remember stories of my grandfather telling me stories about when he was in the CCCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, planting trees just for erosion purposes prior to going into World War II. And so it's just, I'm excited to be sitting here, and I'm excited to hopefully push this forward tonight. So I think
Thanks
it's
for your
wonderful.
leadership. Thank you.
This is a public comment time, or public item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the issue before us? Please. If you don't mind just saying your name and where you live. Oh, that's
Hi, I'm Denise Thorson. I live in Cumberland, Thorsson. I think it's a great idea. I'm on the Orchard Subcommittee, and we have lots of space. And so it could even be a community event, like we're having the May 5th planting event coming up where everyone can come and help plant all the trees and stuff. But there's a lot of space there. So that could be a location where we could have some sort of community event with Arbor Day in mind. Thrown it out there. I think it's a great idea.
That's great. Thank you, Denise. Okay, anyone else from the public? All right, seeing none, I would happily accept a motion. Please, Councilor
Mr. Chair, I'll give you a motion. We, the Town Council of Cumberland, Maine, do hereby proclaim the last Friday of April as Arbor Day in the town of Cumberland, Maine. We urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And we urge all citizens to plant trees and gladden their hearts and promote the well-being of future generations.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor to gladden their hearts? Looks like unanimous. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just while I'm up here again.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to make a comment. I've lived in my house for 36 years now, and when I built my house, I made a fence out of some fir trees that literally were 4 inches tall, and now they're 40 feet tall. I mean, and it really is amazing, because I have pictures of my home when I planted them. You can't even see them, and now you can't see the neighbors. So, I mean, you know, trees make good fences, so.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next item, 24-013, to hear from the Lands and Conservation Commission's recommendation on the proposed 107-unit affordable housing project on Drown Road. I believe we are going to be joined by Mr. Mike Schwint from the Lands and Conservation Commission. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Schwinn, Chair of the Lands and Conservation Commission. Some months ago, the town council took steps to make more affordable housing available in Cumberland. Included were 3 potential projects that would have added 234 new homes in addition to the 34 new homes constructed in the normal course of business in 2023. At this point, we understand that 55-unit senior housing project along US 1 has been canceled, while the 72-unit project is still in the works, as are the 107 units proposed for Drown Road. We do not question the need for affordable housing in southern Maine. I'd like to reemphasize that. We do not question the need for affordable housing in southern Maine. Our primary concern is that the location of the proposed new housing on Drown Road is inconsistent with land use objectives. Our authorizing ordinance requires us to promote the conservation of natural resources and encourage the conservation of water, land, and open space and vistas within the town. This project was not timely referred to so we could meet our responsibilities under the ordinance. The land proposed for the Drown Road project is primarily classified either as prime or of statewide importance farmland by NRCS. According to the Conservation Subdivision Ordinance, applicable to developments in RR1 and RR2 zones, these soil types are considered high-value conservation areas needing preservation. Thus, constructing 3 multi-story buildings plus adding 184 parking spots is inconsistent with the best use of the limited high-value agricultural lands available within the town. The removal of the ball fields to Drown Road is also inconsistent with maintaining open spaces in the town. And listening to the discussions regarding the 2 existing baseball fields, the first alternative cited was to move them to the 12-acre plot adjacent to the Stiles Way and Tuttle Road, and adding 2 more fields plus a 175-car parking lot. We have not heard discussion about moving the playing fields to North Yarmouth, which shares recreation activities with Cumberland. West Costugo Hall, the location in North Yarmouth Field with the North Yarmouth Field, also already has significant adjacent parking lot, along with open space that may very well accommodate baseball fields without paving more land. Other sites may also provide sufficient space without tying up 12 acres of open land. Additionally, we believe the gifting of land given to the town by Elizabeth Drown to a private developer is contrary to her stated wishes and her vision of the town's use of the property. We have concerns about the proposed use of the land as a project in private hands when considering the will of Elizabeth Drown, the donor. Her purpose in gifting the land in the town forest was to support education. The will specifies that all future income from the land is to be used for education. With this project, there will be no potential income from the sale of land or from the sale or lease of the land, nor will the land be used for education. Instead, the land value will be materially diverted for 99 years at no charge with no direct benefit to education. While this may be deemed legal, it is clearly contrary to the intent of the donor. The Drown Road project is even more insidious because it represents an ever-increasing incremental development of the gifted land, inconsistent with the envisioned land usage at the time of the donation, the terms of which the town agreed to when it accepted the gift. We also note the decision to use generated funds for education rests with the officers of said town who have charge of the schools therein. Since elementary and secondary education within Cumberland rests with MSAD 51, the 99-year no-cost lease would deprive that body of its decision-making authority and the students a potential income for generations. Also, if the land is included in a TIF district, any property taxes generated from this or any other development cannot be used for education, further negating the stated purpose of the will. As a result, we believe the proposed use of the town forest land for the 107-unit housing project and the 200 parking space parking lot is inconsistent with the intent of Elizabeth Drown's gift and with the conservation of natural resources, land, and open space within the town, and puts at risk the trust of potential future donors to the town. Therefore, we recommend the land not be used for the housing project, that all remaining land gifted by Elizabeth Drown to the town be placed in the conservation trust, that any future use of any unallocated land of the original gift parcel or any portion of the original parcel that may in the future be considered for reuse or repurposing be used in a manner consistent with the terms of the will or placed in a conservation easement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Schwint. Do we have any questions from the council initially before I open up for public comment? Councilor Vail.
I'll get right to this. Mike, you certainly have my respect for everything that you've done in the past. I support your first piece of the letter, but the moment you stepped into uncharted territory with referencing to wills and use of the land that was outside the purview of lands and conservation, I realized that this letter is not something that I believe came from the Lands and Conservation Commission, but from a group of citizens with a different agenda. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that being presented in a different forum. The fact that this agenda item is been presented thusly so, to me, negates the whole value of the recommendations of the Lands and Conservation Commission, and I don't believe there's anything further to say.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, according to our ordinance, 3015 item E states in part, we are to administer such grants for those purposes subject to the terms of the gift. That's all we're talking about there, subject to the terms of the gift.
Mike, I can't hear you.
The ordinance under which we operate says we are to administer gifts within the terms of the gift. That's all we're talking about.
I guess we differ our opinion on that.
Any other comments from the council, or before I open it up to the public for comment? Anyone from the public like to address this issue? Please.
This went around in an email to the LCC and all subcommittee, like the alias, for a bit. And before, I guess it was like a week or two ago, February 13th, is when it had made its way outside the LCC, and Mike Perfetti responded in opposition to it and started to open up a dialogue on this email chain along with Betsy Harding, and so I threw in my 2 cents. So since this is on the record, I would like to put my response on the record as well from that email chain. Thank you, Mike and Betsy, for opening up a dialogue on this subject.
Denise, can you step a little closer?
To the
It's
mic.
hard for me to hear you.
Sorry. There are several things that bothered me about this recommendation, but 3 of them stood out. First, to quote the letter, our authorizing ordinance, Article 3, Section 3015, Purpose and Duties, requires us to promote the conservation of natural resources and encourage the conservation of water, land, open spaces, and vistas within the town. The project was not timely referred, so we could meet our responsibilities under the ordinance. I would argue that placing a higher density developments around the town center does exactly that. Encouraging varied housing density and mixed-use zoning around town centers not only helps control sprawl and thus conserves water, land, and open spaces and vistas, but encourages healthier neighborhoods and a stronger community overall. Smart growth techniques such as these have been proven to help smaller rural towns such as ours develop in a sustainable way while preserving green spaces and retaining a sense of place. Second, to quote the letter, constructing 3 multi-storied buildings plus adding 184 parking spots is inconsistent with the best use of the limited high-value agricultural lands available within the town. The center of town is the best place to add density, in my opinion, and to build up in moderation rather than out. The developer has carefully considered the approach from street level and has mitigated the multi-story building eyesore factor by digging down. Regarding soil tests and high-value agricultural lands, I question if the town ever planned to use the ball field location for publicly funded pure agricultural lands, and that's a question. Has that ever been considered as a use for this? Third, I won't quote that whole thing. Concerning the will, essentially, the will's been brought up many times, and I'm surprised no one has made the connection between this project and the direct positive impact it would have on education. For one, children, students, have much to benefit from a multi-generational environment, which is what this project was to facilitate. The seniors who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to live here anymore, or new seniors coming into town, would have access to volunteer opportunities at the school, another benefit to them and students. The larger, more obvious benefit of this project to education is the ability for teachers to live in the community in which they work, and the numerous benefits that would provide to them and their students. The 2019 Cumberland Growth Memo, written by Christina Egan, Executive Director of the Portland Council of Governments, said that 88% of people working in Cumberland do not live in Cumberland, contributing greatly to the traffic issues so many dislike and are concerned about. The impact of this housing project and the ability for teachers and first responders supporting the school to live nearby would likely reduce commuter traffic, reduce wear and tear on infrastructure, and at the very least help reduce mounting teacher burnout by cutting out daily commutes from Saco, Biddeford, and elsewhere. The intent of the will was to use the land for educational benefit. What that looked like in 1891 is likely starkly different than the reality of the situation we find ourselves in today, and it's not difficult for me to see how this project fits that original intent. Lastly, using the word insidious to describe this issue in an official LCC recommendation is curious to me. The arguments within the document are those that have been brought up by the same handful of individuals at Town Hall and Valhalla meetings, and I think those two issues should have remained separate. Town Manager Shane and the Town Council have put this project forth with pure intent, seeking to help the town manage growth sustainably and as cost-effectively as possible. It's a topic people are understandably passionate about, but I'm troubled by the tone and have a hard time finding the clear boundary between personal opinions and what is a justifiable, sound argument from a body tasked to focus on lands and conservation. Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. Is there anyone else from the public? Please.
Thanks. I'm Gordon Lichter. I live in Cumberland. I volunteer on our forestry subcommittee, and I am a voting member of the Lands and Conservation Commission. And I, along with a few other members, don't agree with all the conclusions in the letter submitted tonight from the commission to the council opposing the housing development. I do agree with the recommendation that any land that's not used for the development be placed in a conservation trust to preserve the town forest and its existing trails in perpetuity. I also agree that we should look at additional sites for the baseball fields should they be moved. The letter from the commission makes 2 main points. First, the letter states that the soil on which the development is planned, where the baseball fields are, is classified as either prime or of statewide importance by the NRCS. It's unstated whether the latest survey was conducted before or after the work was done to build the fields, and therefore it's arguable that because of the work done and the ongoing maintenance of the fields, the soil has changed enough that it may no longer meet the same standards today. The second point in the letter is about Elizabeth Drown's will, and I believe the commission erred in its stance. Primarily, I believe that the commission failed by not admitting that its position about the will contradicts what is essentially settled law and acknowledging that the town has the right to develop the land. At that point, any further argument should be moot, but the commission continues that the development wouldn't have any benefit to education as was stipulated in Ms. Drown's original gift. I would argue that the development's potential to house teachers, other MSAD 51 employees, an SRO officer, or even school volunteers from the senior apartments alone is enough to meet the benefit to education requirement. I also want to agree with what Denise just said about the word insidious. It seems inappropriate to me. The entire process began with overwhelming support from the community based on the last townwide survey. There was work diligently done to research and formulate the options that led to the RFP and the referendum on the ballot next week. There was nothing insidious about their intent or any of the actions, and it was disappointing to see that choice of words. As a member of the commission, I want to apologize for that insinuation and pledge to work harder in the future to promote our objectivity in our communications with the council. Personally, lack of economic diversity together with climate change are arguably the biggest threats to modern society, both globally and locally. Increasing housing density in existing population centers promotes community and actually helps preserve open space. This project is exactly the kind of development we should be seeking, as it illustrates our understanding of these issues and demonstrates our commitment to being a part of the solution. I want to thank everyone involved for the work done to get us this far. It can't be understated how difficult it is to put in so much time as volunteers, and it speaks to the participants' pride in our town and their desire to continue to see it continue to thrive. I'm inspired by their dedication to promote the greater good and share what we've built in Cumberland. I'll be voting yes next week and encourage others to do the same.
Thank you, Gordon. Is there anyone else from the public, please?
So I'm Reva Crute, and as everybody knows already, I'm a member of the LCC. I'm also on the Sustainability Subcommittee. When the LCC recommendation was made, I was the dissenting voice at the meeting, and my reasons were frankly identical to those just presented here. Not everybody was at that meeting. A lot of people are ill. There was a very bad flu going around. It's a tough decision. There were very strong views in the LCC. I was one vote against. I think there were 5 in favor of the letter as written. The only thing I would say is that you can be in favor of trees and open space, and clearly I am. From the prior time I got up here 5 minutes ago, clearly I am. But it's also the case that we live in a complicated world, and often we have to think of trade-offs and what is going to matter more. And, does housing, people who need housing and who can't afford housing and who work here and add value to our community, does housing matter as much or more than keeping land open? And I think that in this case, when there's a trade-off in a town that is as well endowed with open space as ours is, I really think that we should think long and hard about approving the proposal for affordable housing, and I certainly will be voting for it next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Reva. Is there anyone else from the public, please?
I can't keep my mouth shut. But Mike said very well, most of these teachers, in fact, with the new raise proposed by the state, they will not be able to live here. So it's totally fallacious what you're saying, that this is being built for teachers or employees. It's been well stated by Mike. They're not going to meet the income requirements. So it's a solution in search of a problem. It's not the town's problem, except we're destroying, with greenhouse gases, $3 million worth of perfectly good ball fields. And if you're with the Arbor Day people, I don't know, I can't reconcile that. In terms of intergenerational people enriching the school, we already have 40 to 50 people living in the old Drown Road School now. How many volunteer at our schools? Plus, we have an aged population in the town. We have enough old people as well. So if you're looking for that to add to the school, we already got it. So those two are out. And what about a place for the kids to play ball that they can walk to from the center of town? That's educational as well. Thank you. But I can't buy those arguments. They've been debunked. That's a good liberal word, debunked by Mike.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else from the public have any comments to add?
Bruce Joe and Blanchard Road. I'll tell you what I think is insidious about this deal, that we've tied the Little League to it. That is weighing on people's minds. That is an attempt to tip the scales, in my opinion, insidiously. And then you don't talk about it much. There should be a referendum on that. Do we want to spend $3 million on fields where North Yarmouth should be helping pay for it? They use them too. That's insidious. You have not been straightforward about that, in my opinion. The other thing I would say is I'm in favor of affordable housing in the right place and at the right time. This is not the right place. It's not the right time. It's not the right deal. I challenge the council and probably a new town manager to go back and find something that works for the taxpayers and for this town. This one does not.
Thank you, Bruce. Anyone else from the public have a comment, please? Okay. I believe that was a ditto what he said comment. Anyone else from the public have a comment on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I will probably close public discussion on that topic, and we can bring it back to the council to discuss. Any immediate comments or questions from the council on this? No? You have something?
I think that the only area of discussion really is the ball fields. And I think that the public needs to understand that there is no obligation to build 2 fields or 4 fields. In fact, there's no obligation on the town to build any ball fields. However, I think that we have come to the agreement that we are going to do something. And conversations will be with North Yarmouth. Conversation will be other areas. It is not a foregone conclusion that we will build them down there. And make no mistake, there will be a discussion about that. It will be a discussion about 2, 4, 3, whatever there is going to be, but there will be discussions about that. And I think that's the only area that I have that I'm willing to discuss this evening on this issue.
Okay, I think there's no action on this item. Thank you, Mr. Schwint, for presenting that this evening, and thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. We will be moving on to the next agenda item, which is 24-014, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on the adoption of Chapter 175, Noise Control, as recommended by the Ordinance Committee. I may pass this over to my colleague, Ms. Shirley Story-King, to kind of give us a little background here,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
So this comes to us for the second time, much cleaner than it came to us at our last meeting. This is a, we've avoided this for a long time. Wouldn't you say, Bill, that we've had people pressuring us to do a noise ordinance? Ron, you probably remember every time we have a concern about noise, we have someone who wants a noise ordinance.
Yeah.
One of the challenges with noise ordinances is they're very difficult to enforce. But we're gonna give it a go in response to maybe some loud, constant noises that are being pushed on neighbors by outdoor equipment, perhaps, like I guess I'll just be straight up, by a compressor for an outdoor ice skating arena, or 6 compressors for an ice skating arena. So we took the Kennebunk ordinance and worked it around to meet our needs. There are probably more exceptions than there are ways it will apply. We had a couple of public people reach out via email with some concerns. Bill responded to them. I think he responded thoroughly. The only one I wasn't sure about was dumping of commercial dumpsters. Are there rules about that?
No, some communities do have, like, not to be picked up before 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. as part of the ordinance, so that
Okay.
the banging and the
Yeah,
backup
'cause
alarms.
that's,
and we have it
that's
at
the worst
schools.
part. After those dumpsters dump and they put them back down, that, it's like a dump truck slamming that metal closure. And that's not covered by this, but again, it's still our hope, Tig, that neighbor to neighbor, you could say, could you please have your dumpster, picked up at 10 o'clock when I'm not home, or, the enforcement for this will be the code enforcement officer. So someone asked a question about motor vehicle noise. I'm assuming motor vehicle noise that is loud, like people that do gunning their motors and whatever, will still be addressed under disturbing the peace if the police happen to catch them. I'm hoping that that's what will happen. It's not particularly addressed in this, like street racing or.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
about that? You mentioned the enforcement side of things, and one of the questions I think I was talking with Counselor Filson about is, I understand from the ordinance, it says that the code enforcement officer will be the primary enforcer, if you will, right?
Right.
But how does that work when it's, 11 o'clock at night and he's at home? Is that something where he would effectively be
Good
notifying the
question.
police to go check and do a sound decibel level measurement and then report back and record it? Or how does that work exactly?
It doesn't,
It doesn't.
no.
The noise can only be, it can only be collected by appropriate equipment.
Correct, which we could train police
police,
officers on how to use, and the code enforcement officer could effectively be on paper the person enforcing it
Right.
with subcontracting the on-the-ground work, and I see some doubt.
I
from
think
you.
it's a very difficult ordinance. Nuisance ordinance is very, very difficult to enforce, and that's what most communities find, that, that it doesn't happen when we have ample people around. It always happens at an obscure time, so if you're going to ask the police department to do this, I'd probably recommend we bring the chief in just to talk about some of the challenges there. Kennebunk's ordinance is being challenged basically on calibration of equipment now and proper training and how much training these people have. So it's just one more layer do you want to add for a problem that we've had maybe 2 complaints in the last 5 years? And that's the hard thing. So we have problems, but are they at a level that you want to get to, adding more equipment, adding more manpower to do something that hasn't been a problem for a long, long time?
Well, I do think it would be helpful to have the police chief come in and kind of talk us through what that looks like, just because I think we're all in agreement. Why do you have something if it's just words on a piece
Chief
of
and
paper, right?
the code
Mark,
enforcement.
are you interested in kicking this down the road till March 11th, maybe, and having Chip come in?
Possibly, but I also, there was a couple other questions that I think we should focus on, so maybe we can think a little bit about what those questions might be. One would be the enforceability. How does this work practically, right? Can somebody go and sit there for 15 minutes with a noise measuring device that's been certified, that they've been trained on, that we know works? Or is that, pie in the sky wishing based on current
No,
staff?
that's the easy part. If that's what you want to do, we'll set it up to make it happen. It's stretching resources, that's all.
Totally understand. The other thing I had, I think in the exceptions under section 175-6, or the exclusions, excuse me, section E talks about noise from domestic power equipment such as saws, sanders, lawn, and I'm thinking leaf blowers, we got an email
That was
from,
one of the emails, yeah.
which immediately my ears, I know that sound, right? And so it doesn't discuss commercial, leaf blowing companies. I know there's a lot of folks that hire a crew of 4 or 5 people to just come in and just blow out all the leaves and do whatever. So I think that's something we may want to bring groups like that in to potentially talk, like.
Craig
find-
Wright, he lives here in town, we
Yes.
can bring Craig in, I'm sure he'd talk to you and let you know. I mean, those are the things that I think kind of have fallen through the cracks with this a little bit, because we're trying to get as inclusive as we can, but when you exclude everything except maybe 2 or 3 uses, what do you have for an ordinance? But we really don't have any practical way to deal with actual noise that would be bothering people right now. And this is really the only thing that came forward that seemed like it was worth a shot. But the more we look at it, I think we just got to go into it with open eyes. If this is something you want to do, great. Enforcing, disturbing the peace is one thing, but when you're dealing with this type of nuisance ordinance, it's the decibel meters are the decibel meters. People have told me the 60 that we have in there is too high, but that's what we have in our current ordinance, on our zoning ordinance, at 60 decibels. Under the special exception rules, it's 60 decibels, so we tried to be consistent. It's tough. People are looking to you for some relief, and this may be the only relief they're gonna get. So if we could come up with some compromise that we don't put, landscaping businesses out of work and others, the police is gonna be difficult because the overnights, on the weekends, we have more coverage, but, during the week, it's a little lighter. So it gets to be a balancing act as well.
And we have so many property maintenance companies doing business in our town. We have no idea how many, probably. And, and that would be difficult because they're weather dependent.
Right.
So I can see them after, they were probably running from property to property in between rainstorms last summer. It was so horrible. Wet leaves are not gonna blow anywhere, so.
And I think a lot of this I think it's a really great start, but it's like trying to figure out what is a reasonable level of noise during a particular time frame. Is it okay to expect this noise, just living in a civil society, that these things happen, right? If
Yeah.
you live near other human beings, right? Did you have a comment, Councilor
Yeah,
Wilson?
I was just curious if we do bring in Chief Rumsey, if we could also get even just an estimate of what the costing is going to be for that equipment, for that training. I think that I would just like to know what the numbers look like.
Scott?
This is gonna be a battle that nobody's gonna win. I mean, Shirley and I have sat here for 18 years, and this has come up a handful of times in the gravel pit tailgates. One thing that comes to my mind, and I think this is gonna come to fruition, we're gonna go to these new pick up at the curb trash cans that are gonna get dumped. Anybody heard the racket from those? Because they're not quiet.
No,
They're gonna be right in front of everybody's house, not just the dumpster, but everybody's house. A couple of people that live on private ways are already complaining that they might have to drag that can 500 yards to the curb. I gotta think that these people in the neighborhoods might get together and buy a dumpster, and they all use the dumpster at the end of their street. So I'm just putting it out there. Let's be cautious, because this is gonna open a can of worms. I mean, I really think it is. From firearms to dumpsters to, and Mike, and I know you commented on Terry's concern, which it's true. I mean, if I have a rabid raccoon in my dooryard, I'm going out and shoot it. I mean, or a porcupine or a skunk or whatever. I mean, and I just think we definitely need to do our homework here, because I think there's gonna be a lot of different scenarios.
Ronnie, I agree with, look, we know how this came about.
Yeah, right.
Because we got somebody doing the bad thing in the neighborhood,
Exactly, Mike.
and we're worried about them increasing invasion, but what's worried me is some of the emails we've been getting worried about people in leaf blowers and somebody shooting legally. I don't like the noise, and I don't want the police department, every time somebody gets bothered by a noise, having to run. So I think Mark said it. I'm looking at this thing, or Bill, with both eyes open, and
Right.
I have no particular attachment to this ordinance. I bring it forward in response again to, we want, if someone's putting in 6 compressors for an ice hockey arena or a skating arena, we want the noise mitigated for the neighbors, for those constant,
Yep.
We did something when we allowed commercial growing of marijuana.
That's why it can be a license. That's why we kind of.
Because that's the only fan noise thing that I can think of that we've done,
But it
so.
would be something that would have to be licensed annually, where those things would be checked in order to achieve that license.
That's correct.
Correct? Okay.
That's correct. It could be part of a licensing ordinance.
But again, it's backstopped by this ordinance effectively.
And
It
I-
would be
I
the
don't-
idea, but like
I
potentially.
don't think we've gotten an answer on that yet, on the
No.
licensing piece of that, so
Maybe that's something
maybe
to add
that
on.
might be a better avenue.
Yeah.
Well,
So if you'd like to table this or whatever, I'm happy to do whatever you want with this.
Councilor Bill?
Before we table it, I just have a couple of thoughts. I believe the planning board looks at commercial applications for noise, and that's one of the things that, to my mind's eye, if a business moves in that abuts a residential neighborhood, and they have machinery or something like that, or they have, a shop and running compressors, or even a commercial heat pump, I believe, I have to check, but I believe there's, one of the checkoffs is impacts like that, and those kind of things, I think are already taken care of, but I do appreciate the fact that there is, we can rescind this, we can rescind this ordinance at some point if it finds out it doesn't work, but I think there's some value in putting it in place, because I gotta believe that, that the few problems that people are causing are gonna get taken care of, and that the rest of it will go away.
Well, I don't think we anticipated action on it tonight
No,
anyway, just we
I have
wanted to put it out
I have
there
a
for-
dumpster in my own driveway, and.
To Tig's point, I really do think it would be good to hear from Bill Longley and the chief on enforcement issues from their points of view.
Bob, I think what you're referring to, and I may be wrong, is construction like hours of operation. Like you can't start before, is it 7, Bill, or 6?
7.
7 to,
7 to 7.
7 to 7. Being a contractor, you should know that, so, with your hammer.
Different towns have different times.
Bob's more of a
But,
10:30
no,
a.m.
I mean, and that's for the residents of the town of Cumberland.
Right.
I mean, so that, a guy can't go out there and start shingling his roof at 4 o'clock in the morning, I mean, but I am, and I know where you're coming from. I mean, it's just such a slippery slope. I mean.
Yeah, and we have to be really careful about the exemptions or the exclusions to make sure we're covering the right things. Otherwise, we'll be amending this thing every week when a new thing that we didn't think of pops up, right? So I'm personally fine with tabling it, as I think it's a good start to get us to where we need to go, but I mean, I can't be making a.
Mr. Chairman, I'll have a motion for you.
Before you table,
Yeah,
Go
we have to
ahead.
make sure.
let's
yeah,
make sure we have a path forward.
Correct, because we
There's
can't
a-
discuss after that.
Do you want this to come back on the 11th with the chief and Bill Longley, or are you ready for that, or do you want to wait to see where the licensing goes?
I'd be happy to, well, I'd be happy to do it either here, or if we have workshop, well, we're not gonna need a lot of time with them. And
When do we expect to hear back on the licensing piece? Because that could play into this, or,
Before your next meeting.
okay.
So we could do it as a workshop item at 6:30 on the 11th, if you wanted to.
Okay.
And then you
Give
could decide
budget.
we could leave it on the agenda for the 11th, table it to the 11th,
Town manager.
and then you could table it again if you weren't
We
ready
have,
Executive
manager,
session, town manager
on the 11th.
on the 11th,
Okay,
but
that's not going to work.
I think we need some time. I have a lot of weird feelings about this. I don't know, or complicated feelings about this.
Let's push it to the 25th,
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Give us
Okay.
some time to look at the licensing and,
and we'll have we'll have the code officer and the police chief here, and I'll see if Craig Wright might be available. He could talk about, whatever you want to talk about.
this sounds silly, but I'd also like to hear what 60 decibels sounds like.
Well,
No, that sounds
for the
odd.
last 10 minutes, you have averaged about 60, and you've maxed at 87 for the last,
The
for your
fact that-
conversation.
Do you know that off the top of your head, or please tell me
do.
you have an app on
I
your phone?
do.
Okay, thank you.
It's sitting right here. It's a
Okay,
loud-
it's a loud
That's a
dishwasher.
great way to put it. It is a loud dishwasher, 60 decibels at the property line. So you can see, we haven't been shouting, we haven't been yelling. It's not a lot of noise. So if we want to get to that level, which is the standard level at the property lines, that's
We-
a lot to ask. And
we
you're
did
not going to
this-
get a leaf blower at 60 decibels
No.
We did this 8 or 10 years ago.
or mow the lawn.
Remember we did this 8 or 10 years ago with one of my heavy wreckers? You actually set up the meter out front, and I went by with the Jake brake on just to get decibel levels. And it was kind of amazing where we were at. I mean, so,
It was over 100.
yeah,
Over 100?
I think it was, yeah.
Carmack the Magnificent.
Well, so what
was the-
are we settled in terms of our thought process and discussion here? Because I believe if there's a table, we would have to then have a motion on the 20th, or we'll table it for the 24th or the 25th?
Table it to the 25th, and then we'll do a quick workshop, and then if you want to take it off the table that night, you can. If you don't, we can wait until we're ready.
Okay.
So we'll hopefully have the other ordinance ready.
Mr. Chairman, I move to table this item to March 25th.
Second.
Okay, motion, we have a motion and a second. It has been tabled until the 25th. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Not here on the 25th, so.
My wife has texted me that my skunk is back on the lawn, so you're lucky I'm not home.
Good thing that noise ordinance didn't come in there.
Not gonna get the shotgun out on the way home.
And she won't get the gun out.
Okay, moving on here to 24-015, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on a mass gathering application for the Chickadee Classic Dog Show to be held on June 20th through June 23rd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds. This seems like a wonderful event, and it seems like pretty low-key. It's going to be held in June. I did notice one minor typo, I believe. I just wanted to confirm that it is in June, because I think that it says in the letter they're requesting the following days and times in May.
Yep.
But just to confirm, it is in June, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It sounds like this, the application's been submitted, proof of insurance has been submitted, and the payment of $250 for the mass gathering fee has been received. Does not appear that there will be need for police or fire, or police or rescue to be assigned to the event. There's been no outstanding balances for prior years, and it looks like it will be well managed. So I don't know if anyone has comments or questions on this?
It always goes pretty smooth, I'm sorry.
No, go.
Yeah. Tig, you might want to move your mic down just a little bit. Just you can bend it.
Ooh. This is minor. I found this application really hard to read. And so I just want to thank Jennifer Doughton for putting her thoughts together and kind of summarizing everything in bullet points in type, because it was difficult to kind of discern. And no offense to the organizer, everyone has different penmanship. But I'm also glad that we have that checks and balances system in place, because you can't always get everything out of scroll.
Counselor Kopp, did you have anything else to add on this?
Just that this is a pretty smooth event every year, and it's not a huge, it doesn't draw a huge crowd other than the people themselves that are participants, but we've never seen any issues from it in West Cumberland, so.
Is this later than usual? Don't they usually have it? Or is there another event in June that, I always wonder about public safety when they had them at the same time as graduation?
Oh, right.
Yeah, I
Or
was
is that
thinking
the-
this was around the yard sale. This is.
Yard
yeah,
sales around
graduation.
graduation, okay.
Yeah.
So is that coming back?
I think so.
Any meters?
Yeah, Benny Media's.
Yeah.
That draws a crowd, so.
Okay, this is a public agenda item, so if there's anyone from the public that would like to address the Chickadee Classic Dog Show. Seeing none, looks like everyone's a dogs fan
Mr.
here.
Chairman, I'll give you a motion.
Yes.
I move to approve the mass gathering application for Chickadee Classic Dog Show to be held on June 20th through the 23rd at the Cumberland Fairgrounds.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion?
Jake, I think you haven't read enough seventh grade papers if you can't.
Send them
check
my
out
way.
this penmanship.
I got an orthopedic surgeon, nope.
I just want to add that this is just one of several events that help the Cumberland Farmers Club maintain their status in our community. They need, little events like this to help them keep going throughout the year.
Yep.
So
That's a
I'm
great
glad
point.
to be able to support them in this.
It also is an event where the Lions Club opened up, so it helps the Lions Club
Yeah.
contribute to the community also.
Their new booth.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the last item on the agenda is 24-016, to consider and act on authorizing the town manager to enter into a 3-year lease agreement with Perry Weather for 1 weather station and 2 outdoor warning systems at Valhalla and 1 outdoor warning system for Twin Brook. Mr. Manager, I may pass it off to you because it looks like you've got some materials for this, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I really apologize. I missed the boat on giving you some background information, so you had to read through that item, and it was rugged reading. I'm going to call on John Jensenius, who helped us with this and helped the Valhalla team, and Chris Bolduc as well. This system would be basically a lightning warning system for the golf course as well as Twin Brook. We hope at some time we could get it to all our facilities, but this was the first two that we picked out, probably the most heavily used facilities in town. And this allows our staff to basically set warning horns that would be on top of the clubhouse at Valhalla, would be on the Greeley Road side of the golf course. We would probably mount to either a tree or a pole. And then again at the red dot that I'm showing up here, that's at the, if you come in and off of Tuttle Road, as far back as you can go to that parking lot, so that we could get as much of Twin Brook as we could as well. And the system is really just an early warning system. We can, the system identifies the thunder and lightning storms when they're X number of miles away, sounds the horn at a predetermined distance that we were looking at, either somewhere in 20 to 30 mile range. That warning horn would go off, and that would signal to clear the golf course, clear the athletic fields. Another horn would go off in just like a really short beeps once it was clear to go back onto the fields. I would really love to see us get this to all our athletic facilities and all our out there stations, but John, if you wouldn't mind, because this is your wheelhouse, and John just did this professionally, and he's still a celebrity, so Johnny Lightning.
John Jensenius, 44 Laurel Lane. I'm putting my other hat on. In terms of background, I led the National Weather Service's lightning safety effort for 19 years before I retired. I now lead the National Lightning Safety Council. Since 2006, I've documented 479 lightning deaths across the country. I've studied those deaths. I've looked at where the problems are. And I will say that in looking at the problem overall, the biggest problem is that people don't take action soon enough. They don't realize that they're in danger. Lightning can strike 10 miles away from a thunderstorm, and it's often in the range where you're hearing thunder, you're not seeing lightning. It doesn't seem close, but in reality, you are in danger. And that's where the problem occurs. I can cite an example from last September. I was driving down Tuttle Road. Lots of kids on the fields. There was thunder, and anybody could have been struck at any moment. This system tells people, look, the storm is close enough. You need to get off the fields right now. And that's really the purpose of the system, is heads-up alert. The other part of it is that people go out too soon afterwards. It stops raining. They think it's safe. It's not safe. You have to wait generally about 30 minutes after a storm goes by. So this system is monitoring lightning strikes after the storm to give you the all clear too. So it really takes the guesswork out of it, makes it so much simpler for the people on the field that have to make the decisions. And I don't want to sound sexist about this, but from what I've seen, the people on the fields are generally men making the decisions. They're probably not the best people to make the decisions, because 80% of the fatalities are men. It's the women that take it more seriously. So in any case, this takes the whole issue of, well, is it safe, is it not safe? Too often what's happening is the one person may be looking at the other field saying, well, they're not getting off, I don't have to get off. And that person is looking at his field and saying, they're not getting off, so I shouldn't get off. So I'm very supportive of this. This is something that both the National Weather Service and the Lightning Safety Council recommend for athletic fields. And it's just a very good idea to have it in place. I'm personally looking forward to seeing it in action. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. I'll start here with Councilor Vail.
Is this a radar system?
No, No, it is a lightning detection system, so there are lightning sensors across the country. There are actually several different companies. I consider the company that runs this detection system probably the best one. It's been in operation for about 30 years. It's called the National Lightning Detection System. The Perry Weather System is taking advantage of this other company's data. So one company called Visola is the one that collects the data. They make it actually available to the National Weather Service through a contract. They make it available to Perry Weather Systems through a contract, and then Perry Weather Systems packages that information, does the hardware, sets up the alerts, has the software, and that's what they're selling here.
So in real time, I would imagine that, you know, you'd have a sensor up on Blackstrap, you'd have a sensor up on Knights, up on the end of Greeley Road Extension, down the Forsyth. That doesn't sound like it's very reasonable to think that there are those kind of sensors that close proximity. So they must be dealing with a pretty good size acreage to how do they narrow it down?
Yeah, the sensors aren't very close at all. It's amazing because they are monitoring the signal that the lightning is producing. They're timing it based on various things, and they can pretty much determine within a matter of several hundred yards exactly where that lightning strike is. So, and they have, the National Lightning Detection Network is not just national, they actually have worldwide lightning detection. It's used all over the world.
I did some research on the company, and it looks like they mostly do business in the southern part of the United States. Do you know any other towns or municipalities, or it looked like a lot of schools, like colleges and universities, employ them to keep their fields and premises safe? But how about in New England? Are they operating in New England, or are there other vendors doing the same thing?
In answer to your question, this is not something that I follow very closely. So in answer to your question, there's a lot more lightning in southern areas. There are a lot more deaths in southern areas. So that's why I think you're seeing more systems in southern areas. Typically, in northern areas, what you typically see is you'll see somebody get struck by lightning on an athletic field, and then they install the protection system. One of the things that I did, because I wasn't terribly familiar with Perry Weather Systems either, is I checked with one of our Lightning Safety Council members who actually helped write the guidelines for the athletic trainers, the National Athletic Trainers Association, and she did recommend the Perry Weather System as being a good system.
Okay. And how is this, like, I know we've had extreme weather, and all of a sudden my phone goes off, like there's a bomb coming in somewhere, you know. I think a lot of people have weather alerts on their phone. Is one more reliable than the other? Like, would my National Weather Service alert be more up to date than the Perry Weather Service?
Your National Weather Service alert is for severe thunderstorms, which does not include lightning. It's based on 1-inch hail
Okay.
and winds of 50 knots or greater, 58 miles per hour or greater. So it's a completely different animal. The National Weather Service does not issue any warnings or alerts for lightning.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. There are some apps available on the phones for lightning. I will say they're on some phones, and you may have to pay for the service, I'm not sure. But in any case, I don't think they're as robust as this system.
Okay.
Councilor Eads.
John, are you aware of any time in Cumberland that we've had a lightning accident? Somebody getting hurt out on the golf course, getting hurt at Twin Brooks because of lightning?
I am not aware of any cases of anybody being hurt here. I did go back and tried to estimate how many cloud-to-ground lightning strikes there are in Cumberland, and it's probably in a typical year between 50 and 100
cloud-to-ground lightning strikes
Okay, thank you, John.
50 to 100 a year.
a year that strike the ground in Cumberland.
Is
Counselor?
this system a lease purchase, or is it a monthly rental bill, or?
It's a good question, Ron. The
What I'm-
initial cost for us is about $8,000, and then it's about $7,400 a year that we'd have to pay as a subscription for those 3 sites.
I guess what I'm getting at is, I mean, obviously, we all know the golf course is only open for, what, 8 months on a good year? I mean, and, you know, the baseball field's probably pretty much the same timeline. I mean, are we paying by the month? Are we paying by the year?
These are annual costs.
Annual cost, okay. And then, I guess my next question is, are these cellular horns, or are they wired together? And the only reason I ask is because somebody's asking about Broad Cove.
No, I saw that today too, and I'd love to put it, like I said, at every facility, but these are all, there's a solar panel on each one of these units. This is like the main unit right here, and it basically communicates to the other 2. And that has a battery backup on it, and it's all self-contained. So from my perspective, I'm not looking to wire, cellular service into them or anything. It's, what is so attractive about it, it's a self-contained unit, and we can place them at these 3 facilities. And I think the horn is about 120 decibels, which is pretty loud.
Yeah.
So it's better than those horns that we go out back with and, off the deck, somebody's blowing an air horn, you know.
Right.
So, and, that's effective, but we're guessing. We don't know. We're looking at our phones, we're looking at, and we don't know how accurate that is. It's like, I didn't even know that wasn't the lightning strike. I thought that's what we were looking at, the lightning storm approaching us.
I know we've had a couple of, for instances, down here to Twin Brooks, where we had severe, I think they were calling for hail, but it was severe rain, and we tried to get all of the kids into the building there one day. Actually ended up getting kids into people's cars and buses and everything else. And I think it was one of the bigger events, if I remember right. So, I mean, something like this probably is a good idea.
A lot more
so.
warning than we've had on those occasions.
Yeah.
I think it's taken a lot of the guesswork out, and with the change in weather conditions, the more severe storms we're getting, there's just, we're asking our employees to be something that they're not, and they're not experienced at, when is the best time? Are we waiting too long? And just amazed at what John has provided to my staff and to the public tonight for information, because I think it's pretty much a big eye-opener to me.
Ron, I do have to comment that shelter at Twin Brook is not safe in a thunderstorm.
Oh, good.
That makes sense. Counselor Filson, my apologies for skipping over you, please.
It's okay, it's because I'm a woman, right?
Just Ron was looking at me, and I just got drawn in by his eyes.
I was just curious what enforcement would actually look like, right? So you have people that are independently golfing at Valhalla, and the horns go off. Is it the policy then that they evacuate? Because there's also human agency, right? So my second question is, on the Twin Brook side, if we're not the decision, or who's the decision maker, right? So if it's a school game, they're the lacrosse coaches, like, is it then become, hey, you're playing at Twin Brook, this is our protocol for, is that something that we would have to write into the policy for that property? Or, I don't want to, because it is expensive, and I know that we're saving lives here, and that is wonderful, but there's also the fact that there are people that sometimes just do whatever they want to do, and we would still want this to have teeth in some way, right?
Yeah, I don't see us going into it with 2 parts. The golf course is much easier than Twin Brook, because the golf course, we do have staff that go out on the golf course and bring people back to the clubhouse in carts, and we have 4 and 6 passenger carts. That's the reason we have those bigger carts, to bring people in during these events. You're right, people are, oh, you got to get the last putt in, oh, it's still 20 miles away, I can't even see it, I can't even hear it. Everybody has all the wives' tales that they use, and they're not true. So the golf course is the easier part. Twin Brooks is the harder part, because a lot of it would be coaches, and then a lot of it would be just, people out in the woods walking their dogs, or just out there recreating. That'll have to be through signage and through more information, through our social media, as well as the crier and other things. But enforcement, I think, it's gonna be a tough one. I don't know how we enforce that in a way that is effective enough to make a difference, but we can try.
The high
School's
school-
protocols for thunder and lightning are pretty strict. And I know from experience that, it's the kids really. Well, it hasn't thundered in 30 minutes. Well, yeah, it did. You just didn't hear that low rumble. I would not want to be a coach who didn't, they're pretty, it's part of your fall coaches training, it's part of your spring coaches training, the whole thunder lightning thing. It's worse in the fall because we get more thunderstorms in the fall, but I think this would add on to that. The cost is, I wonder if this is, because it's new technology, if this is something where the cost is gonna come down in 3 years, or?
No idea. I have no idea.
Well, does anyone have any other further questions for Mr. Jensenius? Oh, please. Like to step up? Yep, please. Yep. Hop on up.
Denise Thorson again. My question is, what's the range on those two between the golf course? Because, maybe I'm biased because I'm a parent, but is it possible to move it more into a central location and stick the other one at the schools? Or do the schools already have something like this in place? Or,
I don't know. I don't know if Chris or John, I don't know if you were involved with that conversation, if Chris had talked to the schools, and I don't know if what they had for interest, because it would be easy to mount one at the school, but I think the golf course, because of the topography and because of the locations of where the open space and the trees and everything were, those seem to fit best. And Twin Brook, we think we can get both sides from where that horn's located. But I'd love to have one at the school along the fields there as well. And, it's just, I think this was our first trial, and to see how effective it would be, see if setting those parameters for the warning versus the all clear as well. So all of those things would be kind of an educational process for many, and trying to focus right here and then basically expand maybe out to the beach as well as to the schools and out to West Cumberland as well. But I don't know if it, I think you could probably hear it at the schools, because I can hear the horns at my house when they used to go out with just the air horns. So, and I don't live that far.
One of the problems with being far away is you have to be paying attention.
Yeah, that's true.
And usually, when a lot of sports are going on, there's ambient noise around, and if you're too far away, you just won't hear it. But I think this is a good start, and see how it goes.
Great. Well, thank you, John. Appreciate that. Anyone else from the public have any comments on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council to see if we have any further discussion on the topic.
I'll start. There's a saying that you can't fix stupid. And
I knew you were gonna say that.
this to me is nanny government. I can't think of a bigger waste of money. If you're a parent and you see lightning coming, get your kid off the field. I don't know how to make it much more simple than that. We can't fix bad parenting. And for $8,000 a year, we can spend our money in better places than doing this. Is it a nice to have? We get that all the time. We have a lot of nice to have things. But I don't think, that's why I asked John that question. Have we had any cases in Cumberland where somebody's gotten struck by lightning? Has there been a problem out in the fields where a bus got hit or a building got hit? No. The answer is no. I'd like to think that the parents in Cumberland are a little bit smarter than that, or the golfers are, but I can't vote for this. This is a waste of money.
Anyone else on the council have a comment to that? Please. Was that a thinking or a yes?
Yeah, I'm not in complete agreement with you, Mike, but I'm not in complete disagreement with you either. I'm almost to the thought process that we are right on the budget season. And I guess that I'm inclined to think that before I spend this money, I think I want to see the budget and see where we are, and maybe then have a clearer idea of whether I make a decision moving forward with this. Again, I think you nailed it. It's, my wife uses that phrase all the time, need to have, nice to have. I think it falls into that category. So.
Mr. Kopp?
I think Mike has some good comments. I mean, anybody that ever watched the movie Caddyshack would probably understand you get off a golf course when it's lighting out. Common sense goes a long ways. I mean, and $8,000 is $8,000. I mean, you know, and I gotta think if there was something pretty severe like that our police department would go down there with a siren and say, hey, get off the field. And, you know, they're not always in the right end of town, but $8,000 is $8,000, and common sense is common sense, so.
Well, I'm kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit here on the table, but I would like to clarify, I don't think what Mr. Ginsanis was trying to say is that. Seriously. Wow. So what I don't think this has to do bad parenting is one thing, or not using common sense is one thing, but I think the point that was being made here is that some of these strikes, there's over 100 of them a year, many of them probably occurred in an instance where it didn't look like it was about to thunder, or it didn't look like it was about to lightning. These would help us with that. That said, I do also understand the budget question and where we are in the process. We're about there. And again, reading the tea leaves here, I'm trying to figure out the best path forward on that. Does anyone else have any comments? Please, Councilor Fissen.
I'm not comfortable moving forward with this today. I think it's expensive. I hear what Mike said, and I agree with part of it as well. But the part that also kind of bugs me, and I know we talked about Terry Maloney Kelly's point about Broad Cove, but I think about like the decibel level, which is really loud, right? So people that are kind of in the vicinity of Valhalla and in the center of town are probably going to hear that, right? But what about the fields in West Cumberland? What about Broad Cove? Like, if we were going to move forward with something, I'd kind of want everyone, all parts of town, to be able to benefit from it, versus just kind of that center area. And I understand trialing something out for sure, but it seems like a really concentrated geographical area, and possibly people could be losing out in other areas. So yeah, I don't want to kill this by any means, but I'd like to maybe talk about this a little bit after we have a better kind of feeling for the finances and where we are from a budgetary perspective. It's to be a need to have, or sorry, a nice to have right now more than a need to have, in my opinion.
Anyone else? Okay, looks like I can read the tea leaves, as I said. I think we probably table it until we figure out a clearer path forward, and that may be part of a larger budget request when we see how all the other numbers
And look at our budgets too, like Valhalla budget and recreation budget, and within you know, the building of our budget, which is where do our priorities lie?
Okay.
It would help you if you get hit by lightning, Mike.
Yeah.
Do you want a playground and an early warning system?
He didn't hear me.
So, the thunder was too loud, I guess, so. Okay, so I just want to make sure we're done discussing this before a table motion is put forward. Okay,
You want a motion, Mr. Chairman?
please, sir.
I move to table this item.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, that concludes legislation and policy. We now move to new business. I will start on my left with Councilor Kopp.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of donations for the 4-H food pantry tonight. One of them from my good friend Dean, who has been very generous and donates quite often, and the other one is from Curtis Ingraham. He came up to the shop the other day with his diesel pickup, which has 2 batteries, and he called up and wanted to know if I would install his battery, and I said, sure, no problem, come on up. Well, it turned out to be about a 45-minute job to install the batteries, and I wouldn't take any money from him, but he insisted that I take $20 and donate it to the food pantry. So here it is, and here's my $20 as well. So thank you, Curtis. Much appreciated. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Counselor Vail.
Okay. This is 2024. 60 years ago, this month, my family moved to Cumberland. Kind of a milestone, I guess, if you want to say. But the reason I bring that up is not because that I've been here 60 years or participated in this town for 60 years. I did go away to school. I did go serve my country and come back home. My wife's actually lived here 44 years. But the point I bring this up is that some of the nicest people that I've met are recent arrivals, and the 60 years really means nothing to, it doesn't mean anything. Yes, I've seen 60 years of change here, and hopefully other people at some point in their life will say, I've been here 60 years also. But I think the point that I'm trying to make here is I've seen a rebirth in our Lions Club. We've got a lot of new members, and I've met people that are served in committees around the community in the town that are recent arrivals when you compare it to that 60 years. And so I want to just express the fact that whether you have been here 59 or 5 months and 9 days, you're welcome here, and your participation is welcomed also. So the other thing that I want to talk about this evening is the budget process and where we're going from that. And so Shirley has said this thing a couple of times, or a number of times. There's 147 families that are in need, or some number like that. And it's kind of grabbed me, and I thought to myself,
Sorry.
don't run off. Anyways, so I'm trying to get my hands around that and what that means. So I'm going to put it in perspective that I think, it may sound callous and cheap, but there are 147 families in this town who drive red cars. What do you mean by that, Bob? What I mean is that the dynamics of this community are going to change. Mike, you're negotiated a contract as a negotiator with the police department. You never went and said, hey guys, I'm going to get you half of what you deserve. I'm going to get you everything I can. Shirley is a teacher, and I was involved with a few of those teachers' contracts, and there was never a negotiation about, well, let's see if we can get half of what we deserve. Let's see what we can get. We're deserving of the best. And in the legal world, Joe Bornstein says, I'm going to get you everything that you deserve. And that's the way that a reflection, it's an encapsulation of what I think is a budget. We negotiate with people who want everything that they can get. Our job as counselors is to balance that and understand that there are people who want us to save money, that want to cut the budget. There are people who don't want to spend any more money, and there are other people with competing needs that say you should be adding this person or that person, this particular silo needs more resources. And so we as counselors sit back and we work through a budget that we believe is in the best interest of the whole community. What doesn't change is the number of people who drive red cars. And we don't develop a budget based on that analogy. We all are in a fluid position. That's not to say that we don't we don't put programs in place, or we don't look out for those people who are less fortunate, who are needy. We do. But we also don't put the pause button on. We have some initiatives that we're looking to do. We have a vision for the community of where we're going to go forward. And one way or the other, we work to move that goal forward. The roundabouts, the development of the Route 1 corridor, any number of different things that are part of our goal-setting process. And those are all parts of how we, as a town council, look at a budget. It took me a while to reconcile what you said, Shirley, about the needs of the people of the community. And by changing that to a different dynamic and understanding where we are and what we want, because we all have a working career, and when we start off at $2 an hour, 50 cents for a box of apples, and then 50 years later we're earning more, and we're in a different position. But we're all moving that ball forward. We're all headed for the goalpost, and so I think that for me, that helps me put a little understanding to where we are going forward with our budget. That's all I got.
Great, thank you, Councilor Ville. Councilor Filson.
Sorry, I don't know how I'm going to top that, which I'm not trying to, but it was my 4-year-old son's birthday over the weekend, and he had his birthday party at the fire station, and I would like to give a big thank you to the fire station and just kind of the community room. Caitlin, who was kind of there facilitating, was fantastic, and the newly promoted Jack Small, I think, put on his equipment and then took it off and put it on and took it off because the 4-year-olds were asking him to do so, along with a bunch of other questions. But it's a really great kind of, I don't think I want to call it service, but kind of like nice little perk for folks in the community to be able to use that community room, and if it works, be able to get your 3- and 4-year-olds up close and personal look at what a big fire truck looks like. So thank you to all of them for that, and sorry for coughing through your sorry. I'm done.
Thank you.
Get some water now.
Councilor Eads.
I just, a brief comment. When I came into the council tonight, I heard a story about something that happened, that somebody that is supporting this referendum, something happened to her, which is beyond comprehension to me. I don't care if you're in favor of this project, you're against it, I'm against it. I have 4 friends to my left that are in favor of it. We gotta keep this classy. I've been reading horror stories about no signs being stolen, yes signs being stolen. The conversations get heated on social media. Cumberland's a lot better than some of the stuff that's happened, and some of the stuff that's happened to some really nice people. They don't deserve it. And I just, I'll close this by saying what Linda Vale said on social media. I'll be glad when this is over.
Yep.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Story King.
Sure. So since our last meeting, we had a Recreation Advisory Committee meeting at Valhalla. And Pete spoke of the need for space, not just outdoor space, but indoor space. So he is going to be working collaboratively with the school to begin some hopefully productive discussions about how we can start meeting more of the recreational needs of our communities. So he also shared the budget and where we're at, and recreation continues to be one of the best departments here. It's generally a revenue maker for us. And that being said, I hope when their proposal comes forward, there's a new playground committee. Bailey's on it. She has a lot more information probably than I do. Bill Hansen's on it. He lives in town, but he's He does a lot of work, he works for Wyndham, and he's built a lot of playgrounds out there, so. And then ultimately, the kids at Wilson School will get a vote on, design of a playground. So I hope that when the playground comes forward, that we can support it, knowing that recreation is a budget plus for us. Library also had a meeting. See, I was out every night. And Thomas shared the budget, or they shared the budget. They also compared our library budget, to other towns around us, and we get probably more bang for our buck out of our library than any town in the county, for what we spend and what we have for hours that we're open, and costs per resident, all of those. Our library is probably grossly underfunded. Keeping that in mind, there is a library expansion committee. We're just beginning to do the work, pick the work up again from when it was drawn to a drastic halt in 2020 with COVID. And Bill's coming to explain where we were when 2020 hit and what the vision is going forward. The library expansion committee is meeting next Monday. I was going to say the same thing with the signs. I was mindful of Tim Cotton from the Bangor PD, the guy with the duck. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your hands off other people's property. Just be nice. I also attended a planning board meeting where the Rusty Lantern development was being discussed. There was a lot of interest in the project. A lot of people were there. The owner of the Rusty Lantern, someone pointed out he showed up in a plaid shirt, so he couldn't be all bad. He seemed really open to hearing neighbors' concerns, and that I'm not just talking the people on Kathy Lane, but the people who have in their mind a vision for West Cumberland. Please reach out to us, not that we have much say left in it, but to the planning board. There will be more planning board meetings on this. There's a neighborhood meeting next week. Last week. I missed it. But do keep your communications open about that. And then finally, I'm just curious, when will budget books come out?
March 11th.
Okay. All right. I get nervous about having enough time to look at that, because we didn't do budget today, and we're not doing budget on a Saturday.
We'll be televising our budget meetings.
Okay. All right. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple quick things. I would like to request, Ms. Terry Maloney Kelly sent us an email yesterday asking that her comments relating to the second and third agenda items be included in the public record. So if we could include those, just make a little note of that. I think she would appreciate that. I also, again, my heartfelt thanks to Dan Small and to our town manager for helping me get a wheelie thing so quickly that it was much better than crutches moving through the house. So thank you very much for that. We have our final, if you can believe it, affordable housing community workshop or community meeting at Valhalla on the 29th, so this Thursday at 6 p.m. So if you are not registered for that, please go to the town's website and register. And then finally, I think everybody knows the primary elections are March 5th, as well as the referendum. So if you have not early voted through our absentee ballot process, please do that. I think this is the last week you can do that. Thursday is the last day that can happen, but please make sure however you feel about the municipal referendum that's before you, please just get out and vote, because I think it's important that we have as many people have their voice heard as possible. So that is all from me, Mr. Manager. Do you have something, Councilor Cobb?
The date of the vote is the 5th?
5th.
Is that
correct? Correct.
What day does that fall on?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a Thursday because people coming into town hall.
Super Tuesday.
That was all I had. And I wanted to comment on your meeting at Valhalla.
Okay.
And you said make sure you register, but you don't have to register to attend. I just want
Correct.
people to be clear of that. That's all. It's open to the public. so.
Yep, mostly registered.
Close to 130 registered right now, so we won't be setting up tables, we'll be setting all the chairs up, because
Okay.
there won't be enough room if we get over 150 or 60. So we'll be setting it up more, bigger than this, and have to bring more chairs down just to accommodate as many people as we can.
Great. Mr. Manager, did you have anything else under this section? Okay. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone in the audience for coming tonight, too.
Do you want